Yep, we have a fish on.
The current and wind and tide are a little weird today.
He's here. You can see how the line is running. Snappers are incredibly spiny. Let's get them in the boat. Another keeper. I think they're growing. Perfect, it's working very nicely.
We are going to teach you guys how we're cooking our snapper.
Looking good. We'll see you guys soon.
Welcome to another Gale Force Twins episode. Today we're going to teach you guys 3 things. How to catch, clean, and cook Yellowtail Snapper. Not only are we going to be teaching you all 3 of these steps for snapper, but we are going to be cooking our Yellowtail Snapper 2 ways. One of them being a whole snapper, so we're going to scale it, we're going to gill it, we're going to gut it. And one being we're just going to cut the fillets off and do maybe a pan-seared. We're going to figure that out when we get there though. My name's Amanda. My name is Emily, and welcome to our channel, Gale Force Twins.
So the first thing we're doing is I actually just threw a bait out there really quick to see if the snapper are even on our fishing spot today. But we are going to show you the rig, the details, and everything you do need to know. So don't stress. This is just a let's see if they're here first. The fish are here. I'm going to close that bail and reel. Aww.
He spit it?
We lost him.
We lost him, but he's here.
We know the fish are here.
All right, so let's see why we lost him. Oh, wow, you really lost him. You got your bait too. All right, let's put a new bait on and get that line back out. So guys, we have kind of a weird conditions today. You guys can see our chum bag is on the side and the chum is going that way. The transom of the boat is over here and the bow is to my left. So we definitely have a little bit of a wind against tide and current just going in all sorts of different directions, but that's okay because the fish don't care. So we got our chum out and I'm constantly shaking it. That's really important that you're constantly shaking your chum and paying attention to the direction that your chum is going, because that's the direction that you're gonna wanna cast your line with the chum in order to have your bait floating in the chum towards the fish.
I do in fact have a fish on. This time we're gonna land this guy. Let's close that bail and reel. Yep, we have a fish on. Once we get the skunk off the boat, I am going to show you the rig. Here he is, and there we go.
It's a yellowtail.
The skunk is off the boat.
Officially.
Officially. We got a keeper snapper easily, and we are gonna show you the rig.
Going on the ice.
All right.
Fish is
up
buried.
there, buried on the ice.
Let's go over this rig.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with the rod. We'll give you the whole setup. So today's rod of choice is actually the Gale Force Inshore Reef Slayer. It is our rod that we have designed. We've gone through a 1.5 years of prototypes before settling on this 10 to 20 pound rod, fast action, designed for snapper. Whether you want to catch them on the reef, you want to catch mangroves a little bit more inshore, whatever it is, this is the rod we've designed. We're very proud of it. We've worked so hard on it. If you're interested, you can get them online at galeforcegear.com. But let's move on from there. We've paired it with a Penn Slammer 5500. That's kind of the size that we always recommend for snapper fishing, especially if you're planning on targeting them on the reef.
If you go a little smaller, you could do like 4500.
You can go smaller and go light tackle 4500. It's super fun. But if you're going to be catching flags, which hopefully you are, I'd get the 5500.
And what's a flag, Amanda?
A flag is a snapper over 20 inches.
Yes, which is always the goal.
Always the goal. Okay, so for our main line, we just use braid. We're huge braid people. I want to say this is like 25 to 30 pound braid. I'm not 100% sure, but we spool our entire reel.
It's been a while since we spooled them.
It's been a while, yes. We spool our entire reel with braid, and then the leader, which is the most important part, the question you guys probably really want to know. We use 12-pound fluorocarbon leader. So let me go ahead and pull this out.
And not just any amount, but a very specific amount.
We like to use around like 10 feet of fluorocarbon leader or 2 wingspans. Basically, I like to have enough leader to go from the hook up the top of the rod down to the reel. Now, I actually don't have that much on there right now. because we've been fishing with this for a little while. The leader has gotten a little short, but I like to start my fishing days with at least 10 feet of 12-pound fluorocarbon leader, and we like to use these little snapper jigs. So they're basically weighted jigs, and I'm gonna show you our entire tackle box. So you can see this is our tackle box. These are inshore lures that don't belong in this box right now, but these are the snapper jigs we're gonna be using, and we've got different sizes, really tiny ones, a little bit heavier, and the heaviest. And basically what we do is, oh, and we have some bear hooks in here, which is always good to have.
Bear hooks are important if there's no current.
Good if you don't have current. Today we do have some current, but we might end up switching to these. There's not a lot of current. We start every snapper fishing day with a variety of different jig sizes. 1/8 ounce, 1/16 ounce. What we do is everybody fishes with a different size jig, and then whoever's catching the most, we all switch to it because that's what's working for the day. As far as knots go, we tie a uni knot from our leader to our hooks, and then I'll tie a double uni from my leader to my main line. You can tie a bimini or a spider hitch. You really don't have to. Maybe I'll tie a spider hitch, or if I have a bimini already rigged on there, I'll go ahead and keep it, but you really don't need it. We're targeting snapper, we're not targeting sailfish. If you feel overwhelmed, don't worry, we are gonna put a very detailed list of the rig in the description box for you guys, and I'm also gonna link some previous snapper fishing how-to videos that we have done that give even more tips. We have a video on how to target snapper with oatmeal, which is a really great trick if the bite's not good, and we have a video on how to anchor exactly on your fishing spot. So I'll go ahead and link those for you as well. Let's not waste any more time. I am going to bait my hook. So today we're using shrimp, and what I'm gonna do is I'm going to peel the head off and the tail off.
Rip the head and the tail off.
Just like that. Sometimes we'll even actually peel the shrimp itself, but we don't really need to today. I'll do that if the bite's really finicky. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my hook and just basically run it onto the shrimp to match the shape of the shrimp's body. So the hook's a little U, the shrimp's a little U, and it's ready to go and get casted out.
So like I was saying earlier, the current and wind and tide are a little weird today, so Amanda's going to have to pay attention.
I'm gonna cast out that way, which is very unusual. Normally I would cast
off the transom. Normally you're fishing off the transom, not today.
Essentially the rule of thumb is you want to cast the direction that your chum is going. So just look at where your chum's going, cast that way, send it out. Now the key to snapper fishing, the bail is open, okay? Now we want our bait to look like a piece of chum floating in the current. So if I sit here and hold it like this, is it gonna look like it's floating in the current?
Nope.
No, it's just gonna be sitting there going against the current because the current's going that way and I'm pulling it this way. I just had a bite. All right, guys. Well,
don't do that.
Don't
it might
do
have just
that.
worked.
We might have lost it because of that. So I'll just finish my technique. The fish is fine. You know what? I do need to show you. He's here. You can see how the line is running
on its own.
On its own. So see how the line's going out?
Yeah.
That's because there's a fish on there.
Yeah.
Like that. Don't do what I did, but obviously I still caught one. So we're just gonna go ahead and reel this guy in.
And you can see that there was no rush. Amanda didn't rush to get that fish in. She gave it time to eat, to swallow the bait, and then bring the fish in.
That's a very big technique to snapper fishing, is we're not just gonna like close the bail, we don't set the hooks, nothing like that. Here he is, we got a yellowtail snapper. Let's get him in the boat, another keeper. I think they're growing. Throwing my fish on the ice, you can see I'm grabbing him with a rag because snappers are incredibly spiny. If you look right here, they've got spines. I have been spined by one before. It is not fun. You definitely need to break the neosporin out. You might get a little bit swollen, puffy. So let's get that fish on some ice. And now I'm gonna show you what you should do to catch your snappers.
Something very important when snapper fishing is the amount of chum. Do not be shy. You might look at that and be like, yeah, there's still chum in there. And you know what? Yeah, there is. But guess what, guys? I'm gonna be proactive. I'm gonna get another block in there. So it's okay if you have 1.5 blocks at a time. You can see there's a half block left. I'm gonna add a whole block. Do 2 blocks an hour. Whatever you gotta do, guys, don't be shy.
You probably spent all morning rigging, you spent money on fuel, you got up early, you went through all this effort to get out there and then not go crazy with the chum. Go crazy with the chum, guys.
Chum is key. Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna make another block, even though you guys saw that there was still a good amount in there.
And while Emily's getting that other block, I'm gonna jump in here really quick and give one more tip with your chum. So once we get on anchor, I really hope you're taking notes if you really do want to learn this because it's a lot of information. Once we get on anchor, we put our chum block out and then we rig our rods. So the chum can kind of get going and the snappers can come up to the boat and start eating while we're rigging. So we actually don't even rig our rods at the dock when we're snapper fishing for this exact reason, because we know we want to get out here, let the chum start going, and we'll rig while the fish starts finding us and smelling us and wanting to come up to the boat.
I would say it's probably at least 20 to 30 minutes of the chumming without even putting a line in the water.
Easily. Now I'm going to tell you what you should do. Not what you shouldn't do, even though that guy I still got bit, which It happens.
You got a little lucky there.
Casting in the same direction that the chum is going, and I want my bait to look like a piece of chum floating in the current.
So not only are you just letting it out naturally, you're pushing it out.
Line out. So there's like always a belly in your line. You want to make sure that you're pushing the line out. There's a belly in the line. You basically want it to always be slack. And then what's going to happen is you're going to get a bite, and if your fingers are on it just from pushing it out, not from holding it, you'll feel the line rip out of your hand. Or you can look at it and you'll physically see what you guys did see on that last fish. You'll see the line it goes on its own. So if you look right now, you can kind of see it doesn't really go on its own.
It will go on its own, maybe a little bit with the current. Every day's different. So depending on the day and the conditions, you're gonna have to be attentive to, okay, this is what it looks like when there's no fish. I can see what it feels like, what it looks like.
And some days you will have crazy current and the line will like literally rip out of your hands. There we go, we got a fish on. So I felt it go really fast. And now it's just kind of going out on its own, nice steady pace. I know that's a fish because I've been fishing for a little while and I know what the current feels like versus the fish. So the next step you want to do is when you get that bite, which I've had it, you want to wait at least 3 seconds for your fish to swallow the bait, because your fish might grab it, run with it, but he's got to swallow the whole thing. Sometimes if the bite is really finicky, I will literally wait 10 seconds like I'm doing right now.
I mean, this is a long wait, Amanda. Let's reel this fish in.
So at some point you're going to close the bail, we don't set the hook, and we just start reeling.
Notice how she didn't yank on the rod or anything like that?
I don't know if he's
here.
Keep
reeling, Amanda. Keep reeling.
Fish on. It's gonna be another snapper, I know it. He's swimming towards me. Gotta reel fast. Here he is, coming to the boat. Got another snapper. There we go, another keeper. We're 3 for 3.
Here we have our gorgeous yellowtail snappers. I love these fish. They're absolutely stunning, beautiful, pink, blue, purple, all sorts of great colors. And let's give this guy a measure. You guys see that yellowtail?
I mean, if you're wondering why they're called yellowtail snappers,
not to be confused with yellowtail.
That is a species caught off of the west coast of the United States, like California.
Which is like your
That's
sushi.
Like a sushi fish. This is not
this
sushi.
Is snapper.
This is the delicious snapper. You're gonna wanna grill this guy. You're gonna wanna fillet him. You're gonna wanna pan-sear him. Snapper is my favorite fish in the whole world to eat. So I'm really excited to go and cook these guys up. So snappers have to be 12 inches to keep, and you can pinch their tail. So looking at that, this guy is almost 13 inches. So we know we have a keeper snapper. It's from basically the bottom jaw, because that's the longest point on them, but basically the end of their mouth, all the way to their tails pinched. 12 inches, 10 per person. That pretty much sums up the how to catch your snapper portion of this video. We will link more in the description box, like how to anchor on your fishing spot and how to catch them with oatmeal if you guys want to check that out. That's a fun technique you can try, especially if you're fishing the deeper reef. Let's head back to the house, teach you guys how to fillet these guys, and then we're gonna cook them. We are back at the fillet table, and it is time to teach you guys how to scale, gut, and gill a fish, as well as fillet your snappers. So first we're gonna do is I'm gonna teach you guys how to scale them, gut them, and gill them, and then Amanda will teach you the fillet trick if you guys want the fillet method, if you want fillets for pan searing or grilling or something like that. The first thing I like to do is get my table wet with some water, because a wet fish on a dry table will make it stick to it, and then cleaning your table will also be harder after the fact because all that dirt and stuff will get into the table, and it won't be wet first, and then it'll just be harder to clean and a headache for yourself later. The first thing we're gonna do is scale our fish. Now, I would recommend getting a descaler. I don't have one, so I'm gonna do it the hard and old-fashioned way. So if you guys don't have one,
no big deal, you don't need one.
No big deal, I'll teach you right now.
Method number 1 would be to use a hose, and you guys, the fish scales go down this way, so if I wanna get under them, I'm gonna have to have the water spraying towards the head. Okay, ready, Amanda?
Yep, so you're just gonna backwards spray.
Yep.
There you go, perfect, it's working very nicely. It looks really, really good. So that is one method. The other thing you can do is you can use the backside of a knife, which we're not crazy about that method, but it does work. So
if you have bad hose pressure,
just do us a favor, flip the fish over. You don't have to do your whole fish with the back.
Look how fast that was.
I mean, seriously. So
that's
the hose,
almost better than a descaler.
Go ahead and run your finger up and down to show them how soft it is.
If the fish is soft.
There you go, not a single scale.
No. You want to do the knife trick, which I'm not a fan of.
Just show them the start of it, but we're not crazy about it.
Flies everywhere.
So the knife is backwards. There you go. That's basically your other option.
But that's very time consuming.
We're not crazy about. So let's get that
hose it.
Backwards pressure again.
And the nice thing about the hose is it pushes the scales away from you.
Not towards you.
If you do the knife, they'll come back and fly towards you. All right, so these scales here, you'll see there's a little set here that get hard to come off sometimes. So that's where maybe bringing the knife in might be beneficial, just after the fact. Anything that looks like
the hose
still there and the hose didn't get it.
There you go. It's pretty much.
So that's how to scale a snapper. And this applies to pretty much any fish with scales, guys. Now that the fish is scaled, we are going to gut it. We are going to take our knife. So this is the anal fin here, and you can see its little butthole right here. And we are going to stick the knife in front of the anal fin. Only a small amount. You don't want to stick it in too far and then break up all its organs and get that bacteria everywhere. If you do that, don't worry about it. Don't stress it. But obviously, best case scenario is you don't. So we're going to stick it in as minimally as possible and go all the way up. Now right here, it gets hard. I've seen people actually like take their knife and go around it. Let's try and get through it. Just takes, there we go.
There you go. So you're getting through it, and she's just going to work the knife all the way up, basically to the bottom of the jaw, through the whole thing.
Yep.
Just like that. So that was perfect.
Now, if you
have your organs inside, so if you're squeamish and are watching this for fun, you can skip past it. Okay, so we're going to basically just rip out the organs.
Best case scenario, they come out in one easy swipe. Typically they do, especially if you don't puncture them on accident.
Exactly. So we kind of just pull those out. And
pretty good.
Yeah, that is really good. All right, so
let's do the gills next.
Yeah, we'll gill them first. Gill them next.
Here's the gills.
All right, so if we pick up the gill plate, which is what Emily's currently holding.
This is the gill plate, the top portion of the gill, and this is the actual gills. So I like to make a cut on either side. So one side.
Perfect.
And excuse me, madam, have you been here with my knife?
Second side.
And the second
So we're
side.
just basically cutting straight down on either side of the actual gills.
And then I'll pull them out with my hand. Some people don't even cut them. They'll just
rip them out, which is tricky. And after filleting a bunch of them and
both sides,
a bunch of them, it gets tough.
Right.
But
both sides of the gills, just let me see, double check that. Nope, gotta do their side. Okay, sometimes both sides will come out.
We'll show you one more time. So we're making straight cuts down underneath the gill plate, through the gills, and you can go in there and just rip them out yourself. But like I said, after quite a few fish, you'll really get some blisters, and it's not very enjoyable. So we're just gonna go ahead and rip that out. Perfect. That looks really good. So you can look inside, and basically you can see it's pretty much emptied out. The next step to do here is really just to rinse it out with your hose.
I'm gonna give it a good rinse. This will definitely get any remains out too that you leave behind. And this is what it looks like, nice and clean. So here we have our whole fish, gilled, scaled, gutted, and gilled.
Now we are gonna move on to the filleting portion of our yellowtail snapper. I'm gonna do this one because I am right-handed, might make it a little bit easier to visualize. So I'm actually gonna do this in literally one stroke. If these were large snapper, large fish, you would definitely wanna outline it or maybe do a different method. But because of the size of these fish, the best way to do it, I'm gonna take my knife and I'm gonna basically make a diagonal cut right behind the head and right behind the fin right here.
The pectoral fin.
And I'm gonna go basically down
towards
the backbone. Okay, and then once I feel it, I'm gonna turn my knife just like that. I'll show you on top of the fish. I'm gonna come down the backbone, the entire fish. And the rib cage is right here, so you might have to like push a little bit to get through that rib cage. And yes, that's not exactly the best thing for your knife, but it saves you a lot of time. So we're gonna go ahead and basically I'm just gonna take my fingers, I'm gonna grab right where I made that first cut. When I cut my fish, I'm not gonna saw, we're gonna push and then push, okay? That's the best way to do it, to get nice smooth motions. So let's just get around that rib cage, which I just felt it, it's gone. And then I'm just following, I can feel where the knife is on this backbone right here. We're just gonna basically push it down.
In as few strokes as possible.
So there you have a really nice looking fillet right there. You can see we really didn't miss any meat at all. And then for the other side, so what I like to do is, I like to have this end of my knife closest to the
heel
backbone.
of your knife.
Heel of my knife, thank you, Emily. Closer to my backbone, because I could do it this way, make a diagonal cut, and come down. But the problem is this is the flexible part of the knife and I will miss meat up here. So what I do, which is a little bit which I don't know, I've had some people say it was weird, but it really works for me, is I make that cut and I actually flip my fish around. So you can kind of see
Yeah, and I'm just gonna show you, see how her left hand is on the head and the right hand is on the knife. There we go.
And the thing about doing it this way is it might look scary or confusing, but because of where my left hand is, there's no risk. The knife is still going away from my hands. So I'm gonna put my left hand,
support the fish,
and then I have the heel of my knife on that backbone, get through the rib cage right there.
And just as few strokes as possible, and try to make your strokes long.
There we go.
Nice job, Amanda.
All right, so we can flip this guy over, and once again, really nice looking fillet. So now we're gonna remove the skin and remove the rib cages. So for the removing the skin portion, I like to switch to a more flexible knife. So before I was using this knife, which you can kind of see, like, it's got a little bit of flexibility, but not really. This is my like everyday knife, and then this is my super flexible knife. So I'm gonna switch to my flexible knife, really good for skinning. And I'm just gonna come back here, right where basically the tail was, and just leave like myself like a ½ inch. I know you lose a little bit of meat right there, but it does help if you can actually hold your fillet. You don't want to come all the way up here and then miss it and then you ruin the whole thing.
It's like worth the sacrifice.
It's worth the sacrifice to know that I can grab it. So same thing, I'm gonna come down until I feel that skin. Now this part is very delicate and gentle and takes practice. And then I'm gonna turn my knife and just run it along the skin. And as I'm doing this, I'm taking my left hand and following the back side of that knife. So we're just gonna follow the back side of our knife.
And something else I want to talk about is the fact that look at how close to the end of the table your fillet is and your knife and your hand. So there's not a lot of space.
I'm working really close to myself.
So what happens a lot of times with beginners?
People end up accidentally filleting up here.
The fish slowly slides.
The fish will slide away. And as your fish slides away, you just want to bring it closer to you. All right, so let's look at the back side. So that looks pretty clean.
Good.
Pretty good. This one too.
Good.
So what we're gonna do, last thing to do is cut out that rib cage, which is right here. Just gonna take my knife.
Bones.
Yep, and we'll do that. So we're gonna cut this out like so. And then there's some pin bones right here. And they normally run on snappers like probably right around like halfway down the fillet. So we're gonna turn it around or make a little V cut to cut out these pin bones, which are right where the like bloodline is.
Yep.
So you make a little V cut, and you can feel them if you run your hands on it.
Yeah, so if you're worried if you'd missed any bones, if you run your hands through the meat and you don't feel anything pointy, you're good.
Right here, in case I missed any. And there we have
Perfect.
2 little Yellowtail Snapper fillets. All right, you guys, we just gutted, and scaled a fish, and we filleted a fish. We will see you in the kitchen. Welcome to the kitchen, where we are going to teach you guys how we're cooking our snapper. Now I have 2 whole snappers right here. We're gonna do them 2 different ways, and then we're also going to take our fillets and do a 3rd cooking method. So you guys are gonna have 3 whole recipes. Our first one's gonna be grilled with lemon, parsley, butter, and fresh garlic. The second fish is going to be with a seasoning. Now, guys, we are using Ace's First Cast seasoning. And a little fun fact, if you haven't seen it yet, so we recently did a collaboration with Ace's videos. So if you guys wanna go watch us collaborate, that's where we got the seasoning from. That will be linked in the description box. We did a fun kingfish video fishing with Ace. So we are going to be using his seasoning with some olive oil and really not do much to it because we want the seasoning to shine. So the first thing I'm going to do is put some slices into the meat so it will get all of the flavor and juices into it. So I'm gonna do some diagonal one way and then diagonal the other way. Perfect,
How
just
delicious
like
is
that. That looks delicious.
Same thing on the other side, diagonal slices. That way that meat is really flavorful and just filled with the butter, parsley, and garlic mixture. With our mixture of butter, fresh garlic, and parsley, we're going to fill the cavity of the fish.
Just like that.
Then we are going to pour it over both sides.
Perfect. And we're gonna rub it into the grooves, just like that.
Flip it over.
Let's get both sides.
And I am going to save a little bit of this for the grill to when we flip the fish to add more, because once it's on the grill, some might fall off and drip off.
So we're gonna save some. We're also gonna salt this guy really quickly as well.
Sprinkle some salt on there, again on both sides. Perfect. I'm gonna be stuffing the cavity with fresh lemon slices, and then we are going to stuff it with even more of this fresh parsley, and I'm gonna get it on both sides. Lastly, I'm going to take some fresh lemon and just do a small squeeze over the top of the fillet. I personally am not a big fan of doing too much lemon because it can be really overpowering. So I don't do too much. That's why I didn't even put the lemon juice into the butter and garlic mixture. I'm just using a fresh lemon to squeeze onto it. The next fish is going to be seasoned with Ace's First Cast seasoning, but first I'm going to do some olive oil, and I'm gonna pour olive oil on both sides of the fish and again into the cavity and rub that around. And then we are going to season. The first ingredient on this seasoning is salt, so I like to keep that in mind when I'm seasoning my fish. So because the first ingredient is salt, I won't be adding salt. This is all that's going on the fish. However, if you guys read the packaging, Ace personally, the creator of this seasoning, likes to add salt. So to each his own when it comes to salting your fish. I am going to go pretty heavy on the seasoning.
We're gonna sprinkle it on there.
Sprinkle it on. We're gonna
and
sprinkle
rub
it into the
grooves,
cavity.
into the cavity.
We want this fish nice and seasoned.
Yes.
And if you read the ingredients on the back, there's some cayenne pepper, paprika.
Yes, this is definitely a spicy seasoning.
It's gonna be like a Cajun, a little bit of Cajun seasoning. Really get it in there. This is good. If it's going on the grill, I like to season a little bit on the heavier side because it will definitely fall off between the grates. You guys may have recently seen, we got a new grill, we got a Traeger. All right, so oil on a paper towel.
Yep, so
really
you
important.
need to make sure that you oil your grill, especially with fish, so you don't lose the skin. And we are currently in a Florida cold front right now. It's like 50 degrees
look.
outside.
Check out the
So
butter.
the butter on our fish like hardened because it's cold, but it'll melt again in like 2 seconds once we put it back on that grill.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Whole fish.
Getting that whole fish, perfect. Oh yeah. All right, get the second one on there. Delicious. So you guys can hear that sizzling. And with the size of these snappers, we're probably gonna do like 8 minutes aside. We'll see you in 8 minutes.
Here we go. Oh my goodness, that looks amazing.
Look at that.
Okay, pro tip, if you use a spatula, you'll scrape the skin off.
Lift it and flip it onto a fresh spot on the grill that's been recently oiled. There we go, lift it.
Oh no.
Stick it a little. Okay, good. Fresh spot on the grill.
And fresh butter to drizzle over it.
Looking good. 8
Amazing.
more minutes. We'll see you guys soon.
Here we go.
Let's take a look.
Good.
There is our oil and Aces seasoning. Pick that guy up gently and carefully. Perfect.
Oh man, when it's falling apart though, it's a good thing.
And this is our butter, garlic, parsley, lemon fish. Oh my goodness.
Those look amazing. It is time to make our snapper fillets. So maybe staring at a whole fish on your dinner plate's not really your thing. And I don't really blame you if it's not. I used to not really like it, but now I kind of enjoy it. So we have our snapper fillets for those of you that don't want a whole fish on your plate. First thing we're gonna do is season the fish, the fillets, before we coat them in panko. And we personally like to do that because you can see how much seasoning is on your fish. Some people will mix it in the flour, and I'm not a big fan of that because you don't know exactly how much is going on each fillet. Before we cook this, we're going to make some tartar sauce so that way as soon as they're ready, the tartar sauce is ready to go and it's going to be so good. For today, I'm just gonna be seasoning the fish fillets with salt and pepper. We have done a crazy amount of varieties for this. Whatever you wanna do, do it. Maybe do some paprika, maybe do some garlic salt, get crazy with it. But today, I'm thinking like a less is more kind of vibe. So I'm gonna do salt and pepper, especially because our whole fish going on the grill, they have more advanced seasonings. Let's just do something simple. All right, we are just going to add our salt.
Yes, and same thing here though, it is okay to add a little more seasoning than you normally would because once you dip it in the flour, the egg, the panko, you do lose some of it. So don't be afraid to do a little more than you're comfortable with.
Maybe some blackening seasoning. Some people like it blackened.
Yes, you can blacken it before doing this. You can do paprika.
Lemon pepper when it comes to fish. Sometimes less is really more. This is very important, the order. Guys, please do this order. You have to go flour, memorize this, flour, step 1. Step 2, egg, and I will switch hands because I'll try to have a dry hand and a wet hand. So my left hand will be the egg, my right hand will be the flour and panko. Step 3 is the panko, and I'm going to push it down into the panko, really get it nice and coated, add a little bit of pressure to it so it sticks to it. And again, guys, the order, flour, egg, panko.
Don't change it.
It's a game changer for getting your panko to stick nicely.
Nice and crispy. There we go. So that is our first fish fillet that is going to get put in some oil.
While we wait for our oil to heat up, we are going to make a tartar sauce. This tartar sauce recipe is my absolute favorite. So
it is our
absolute favorite. Homemade tartar sauce. Yeah, probably a little biased, but I love this recipe and it's pretty easy and straightforward. Just add some fresh ingredients and it's a game changer. All of the specifics of this recipe, of all of our recipes, will be in the description box. But we start with a ½ cup of mayonnaise, freshly chopped dill, which is a game changer. If you guys can't find it, you can use dry dill, but definitely recommend the fresh dill. Then we're going to have dill pickle, Dijon mustard, Worcestershire sauce, and lemon juice. And then after we get that all stirred up, you can salt and pepper to taste, maybe add a little extra lemon juice or kind of go from there, whatever your taste buds want. In my opinion, the easiest way to do this. Now we're gonna put the tartar sauce in the fridge to set just while we're cooking our fish. And then once it's cooked, we'll take it out and it'll be so delicious. We have olive oil in our pan. Now you guys can pick if you want a different kind of oil We like to do olive oil, and you can see there's a pretty decent amount in the pan. We want enough so that way when you put your fish in, it's at least coating halfway up. So if you guys have really thick like mutton snapper fillets, maybe get some canola oil and almost kind of you're creating like a deep fry. But we're just doing it in a pan. So if you have a deep fryer, it's the same concept. Are we ready, Amanda?
Yes, so go ahead.
First
Take your first fillet.
And I have it about like a medium heat, medium high. That sizzle, that's what we want. That sizzle's perfect. Oh, this is gonna smell so good. I wish we had smell-o-vision for you guys. I would say 2 to 3 minutes aside. You guys can see it's starting to get a golden brown color on the edges, and it's been about 2 minutes. So I'm gonna give it a flip. Oh my
yeah,
goodness,
that looks perfect.
Guys, if it gets too dark too fast, like if it got really brown within a minute, then your heat's too high. And if it's been 4 minutes and it's still like this lighter color here, if the whole thing were that lighter color, then the heat's too low. But this is perfect. We have a little bit of crispy on the edges. This looks really good. All right, guys, I put the second one in, but this first one's been at 4 minutes. So we're gonna take it out and, oh, perfect.
Flip them over, let's see.
Look at the
Oh
other
yeah,
side.
golden brown on both sides. And we
Now-
like to put our fish on like a
Cooling
cooling
rack?
rack with a paper towel underneath it to absorb.
So that way oil can drip, but then the breading doesn't get soggy from sitting on like a plate or stacking a bunch of them. All right, here it is. We just plated it. We have our whole fish with parsley, lemon, garlic, and butter. We have our other whole fish with Ace's first cast seasoning and olive oil. Then we have our panko-breaded, pan-fried fish fillets. We got our homemade tartar sauce. And we did a quick little 3-minute steam in the bag garden vegetable rice. All right, Amanda, which one are we digging into first?
I want to dig into the parsley fish.
Parsley. All right. You ready? Look
I
at
am
how
so
flaky.
ready. Let's look at that.
Nice and flaky. It's cooked perfectly.
Oh my gosh, that looks so good.
You ready?
We are ready to go. Cheers on the parsley, lemon, garlic, butter fish.
Yes. Amazing.
So good. Wow. I think we need to dive in straight into the Ace's seasoning.
So this one's gonna be the spicy one.
We've got olive oil and Ace's seasoning. I'll try to give you guys a close-up shot. Cheers, cheers. And we'll taste this one.
That's more for like your Cajun, you want your fish spicy people.
That's actually really good. That's got a
That's
nice
really
amount of
good.
spice to it.
I like it. It is kind of, it's spicy in a good way.
And it's good spicy, perfect spice.
Yes.
I think it's time to taste that panko-breaded fillet. Break it apart, show us the inside of it.
Perfectly
That looks
cooked.
so good. Give it a dip in the tartar sauce. How does it taste? I could hear that crispiness. Delicious, perfect, to die for. I need to eat some too.
It is time for us to devour this food. Guys, detailed recipes in description
Yes,
box.
if you want our recipes, they're free in the description box.
Thanks for watching. We hope you get out there, have fun, and stay safe.
Nothing crazy. You can type Bimini. Don't need to on this setup. Nothing crazy. Sorry. Nothing.
Why don't you start the list?
Dang. One more time. All right.
Nuts. But I want like my face and the fish.
Yeah, you got it.
But this is the basic. This is the music.
I know. I just realized it.
And then we're also going to get those fillets, and we are going to panko bread them and fry them in some oil on the stove. I need to redo that. First one's going to be cooked with grilled. Loving this recipe. We've actually, sorry, I'm trying to figure out. Parsley, what is it? And then coating them in panko breadcrumbs. Let's redo that. While we wait for our, what's it called? Oil in the pan?
Our oil.
Okay.
Heat up.
Fresh dill.
I have a bone.
Oh.